Are you exhausted by the constant advice? Don't forget to take care of you. I mean, it sounds overwhelming with everything that you're juggling. Seriously? In today's episode, Sue and I are talking with Elizabeth Miller, founder of the Happy, Healthy Caregiver, about the realities of self-care. Everyone, let's get started.
Welcome. We're Sue Ryan
And Nancy Treaster.
This podcast brings our years of experience in a variety of family caregiving roles to prepare you to navigate your caregiving journey.
We're sharing our personal experiences, not medical advice. And because it's our passion to support you on your journey, we believe no topic is off limits. Let's get started.
Welcome, Elizabeth. We are so glad to have you here and glad that we're all here in person to be able to share this.
Treat.
For our listeners, I'm going to begin by reading you Elizabeth's bio, and then I'm going to introduce Elizabeth as I know her. So, Elizabeth, you are a family caregiver. You're a caregiver advocate, a speaker, an author, podcast host. You're a certified caregiving consultant, which is a lot of work to become that. And you're also a certified senior advisor. You really know what you're talking about because your personal experiences include your caring for your aging parents with chronic and terminal illnesses, as well as for a sibling with developmental disabilities. These are what inspired you, and it's now been nearly 10 years. This is your 10th year with the Happy, Healthy Caregiver. So welcome. And now I'm going to share with the audience who I know, and who I know you from the very first time I've met you is someone who really is passionate about helping all of us. Your messages come from your head and your heart. You've thought through all the things that you're doing. You're very intentional about giving messages that help us remember that there is joy in our lives and to look at the entire person, to look at holistically what we're doing. And you bring that. You've created a variety of resources. I've been using your journal for years. And you walk the walk and you talk the talk. And we are so fortunate that we're going to have you talk about one of the topics that you are so masterful with, which is self-care.
Yeah.
So let's get started.
So sweet. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you for having me. What a treat that we can all do this together. I essentially created what I wish existed for me as a family caregiver. I know this is what has inspired you all to create the caregiver's journey.
Yeah.
And I'm learning from caregivers every day. I think the caregivers are the experts in caregiving. And so you all are spotlighting what you have learned and sharing it with the world and what to, do a similar thing. Just make somebody's journey a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
I resonated with what you said, Nancy, in the beginning about, how annoying it is when people say you take care of yourself. And it's hard because that is what I talk about all the time. I talk about self-care, and I certainly don't want to do it in an annoying way. I felt similar in that I felt like people were shoulding on me.
Yeah.
You should take care of yourself. And yet so frustrated that I didn't understand what that could really look like as a person who was in a sandwich generation caregiver, caring for older adults, raising middle school kids, working a full-time job, and feeling like I was on a constant treadmill. So what did that really look like?
Mm-hmm.
I have evolved my definition of what self-care is over the years. Where I am today, feel that my definition of self-care is anything that is going to provide me emotional or physical energy, anything that is going to provide peace of mind, and anything that offers just pure joy.
Elizabeth, would you please say that again? That is so powerful and impactful. Please.
Yeah. So put everything through a filter if this is going to help you. Is this self-care for you? Does it give you emotional and physical energy?
Yeah.
Or does it provide peace of mind? Or is it just pure joy?
Oh, love
That's
that.
a wonderful definition. It really is.
It really is.
And it has evolved. And I think one of the things we learn as caregivers, and people share a lot to caregiving community, is that we need to put the oxygen mask on ourselves before we care for other people. That frustrated me because I felt like, when we're in an airline situation in a crisis, it's going to be obvious, right? There's going to be flashing lights. The masks are going to come down. People are going to be telling us, hey, now's the time. That's not reality. When we're on this treadmill of life, there's no flashing lights and things coming down from
That
the
would be
sky.
so helpful, actually.
Yeah.
Out would come the
it would be good.
the oxygen
Flash,
mask.
flash. You're not
Yes.
practicing self-care. Yeah.
So it doesn't work that way. So I had to figure out a different analogy that worked for me. And one that I have landed on and share is that it's like feeding a nest of hungry birds, and your birds are representing your job, your kids, your pets, your home, your relationships with your spouse, your care recipient, if they're a different person, all of that. And we know when we see that nest of hungry birds that they're never just peacefully in there. There is someone always needing something.
Yes.
And that's definitely what it felt like as a caregiver, that somebody is always needing my attention. And yet it clicked for me that if I did not fly from my nest and figure out how to nurture myself with that energy, that joy, that peace of mind, that I wasn't going to keep showing up and being able to nurture my nest of hungry birds.
And that's so true. I'll tell you, one of the things that I kind of figured out over the long haul is that the diagnosis of to our audience, a dementia diagnosis, you're at the doctor and you get your care receiver gets a dementia diagnosis, and you're at that point, you're a caregiver. You don't even know it. You don't recognize the term, but caregiving is not just for the care receiver. It's for you as well. So that you are a team that needs cared for. So yes, you're providing a lot of the caregiving, but both of you need, as the primary caregiver, both of you need to be cared for. And so you're responsible not just for caregiving for your care receiver, you're responsible for your own caregiving as well.
And I know what it looks like when you don't do that.
Tell us, Sue.
Because in my professional career, I was like doing more. And that was what I was used to. So I become a caregiver, and I'm like, well, I can shave off going to the gym every day. I could shave off an hour of sleep and get the things done I didn't get done during the day. And I can do a little of this and a little of that. And then one day I fixed my husband lunch, and I had him a nice little sandwich and some potato chips. And all of a sudden he picks up the potato chip and drops it on the floor. A potato chip, no big deal. And inside, I just went nuts. Like, seriously? You can't even be responsible for eating a sandwich? And I've been working so hard all day. I got up before, blah, 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 blah. All those things. Now, fortunately, that stayed inside. It did not come on the outside because I had a little grace of space that what came here didn't have to come here. However, that's nothing I would even normally even think. And it was a silly potato chip. I gathered myself, put more potato chips on the plate, said, honey, I'll be right back. And I went in the other room and I sat down and I was literally shaking. And I was like, what on earth happened? And what had happened is I was not practicing self-care. And I just kept shaving off, thinking it was okay. And I also had not gotten something very valuable, which is an accountability partner who can hold me to practicing self-care. And I did fine. You've got to do it.
Well, I think your story, Sue, thank you for sharing that, first of all. Like, I think we have to be vulnerable in order to kind of unpack this stuff. And we hear sometimes about the analogy of the frog boiling in water. Like, you wouldn't have jumped into a boiling pot of water of caregiving, but it's a slow boil over the months and the years. And we all kind of we all have that potato chip moment. Yeah. I had my first panic attack as a caregiver. I didn't even know I was having a panic attack. But I mean, at one point, they even in a doctor's office went and got like an EKG machine for me to check things out. So we all kind of get to that point where enough is enough. And hopefully we can have this conversation here with you all today. So say, let's help you not get to this point.
Exactly.
Let's help mitigate burnout and teach different strategies that maybe you can try on that will help make this sustainable for you.
So Elizabeth,
and learn from the three of us because learn from the three of us because each one of us has that story of when it finally clicked that this is not working.
Yeah.
And so this episode is to try to help you go through some strategies to keep that from happening.
Let's go ahead and then get started with tip number 1 of our 4 tips. Elizabeth?
Tip number 1 is to give yourself permission. It's counterintuitive, right? We're taking care of everybody else. So we don't feel like we can take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And why that is, maybe we feel like we're guilty about it. We feel it's selfish. We feel like this person is having such a tough time at life. How dare us go out and experience?
So far, none of these are anything that serve us.
Yeah.
No.
So it is counterintuitive. And yet, in order to make caregiving sustainable, hopefully get to that point where you figure out that you do need the permission to do that, because you do have the diagnosis. For many of you who are a dementia caregiver, this is not a short-term thing.
Right.
Average caregiver is 4.5 years of caregiving. Some from dementia caregiving, I'm sure, is
closer to 10
longer.
Yeah.
So how do we make this sustainable? And the first thing is to give yourself permission.
I actually needed someone to physically tell me I had permission. How about that for interesting? So it's a concept, give yourself permission, because we don't, because we feel guilty, or what would other people think? That's another thing. But I went to a therapist after a couple of years into my husband's diagnosis, and was talking to her about what was going on and about my feelings and all that goes with that. And she said, well, I am giving you permission to do what you want to do sometimes and to take care of you. And we had a long conversation about that. And I got home and I realized, wow, I really needed her to tell me I had permission to do it. So literally she used those words, but I needed to hear that. You have permission to take care of you.
Yeah.
So
do you think it mattered that it was a professional, or could it have been, a close friend or somebody?
I think it was the word permission that really stuck with me, because I thought, oh, I've got permission to do this. And it made perfectly good sense. You know what? We're all professionals.
We're giving you permission.
We're giving you permission.
Exactly.
So.
We give you permission.
Permission granted.
Permission granted. Yes.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about tip 2, because I think self-care is a term that everybody has their own little definition of.
Yeah.
And you have some good advice about how to think about it a little more broadly.
Yes, think about it broadly. So when I was first on this journey with Happy Healthy Caregiver and starting to try on different things, almost like we try on clothes, right?
Yeah.
To see what's going to fit, because all of our self-care for each other is going to be different on what's going to hit the energy, the peace of mind, the joy. We're not a one size fit all. I was very super focused on physical self-care.
Okay.
Initially, it was eating right and exercise. And it made sense because as a caregiver, the people that I were caring for made poor lifestyle choices. And so I was so fearful of reinventing that same cycle again for my kids that I did not do that. So I went all in on physical. And I think that's a little bit of what the media does too.
Yeah.
Also, like that we need to spend a lot of money in order to have self-care. We got to have weekends away and nights on the town and wonderful trips, which are great. But as a caregiver, I had to figure out what was realistic as far as, someone who worked full time with kids and caregiving. So trying on different things, I have over the years fallen on that all of the content that I share on Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast and on the website falls into 8 categories of self-care. And so we're going to name those out for you. Practical self-care.
Okay.
Sometimes it's just cleaning off your desk.
Yeah.
Emotional self-care. Sometimes going to a therapist. For me, it was journaling. Social self-care. We're doing it. We're together right now. Spiritual self-care. Whatever your spiritual journey looks like for you. Intellectual self-care. Learning something new. Trying something new. Financial self-care. Budgeting, what are you going to do for charitable things? It could be a broad type thing. How are you going to pay for some of the things that are expensive with caregiving? We don't think about that as self-care, but that's going to offer us peace of mind when we figure that out. Professional self-care. We all deserve to make a living and do something professionally. So what are the skills and so forth that we need there? And then physical self-care. And I intentionally kind of put that one last because I think it gets too much attention.
Yeah. You're right. It does get a lot of attention. It feels like, oh yeah, that's the thing you're missing.
Yes.
I think what is helpful for me with those is it gets me out of the single thread, like you said, for the physical part, and helps me be open to considering what could self-care look like. And it could be as simple as, for example, when I go out to water my plants now, I get great joy and I celebrate what they look like and things like that. Now, for some people,
I don't celebrate what they look like at my house.
I do.
That social self-care, they take on.
I like it.
She's socializing,
and yet it makes me feel good. So it can be any kind of a thing. Nothing is too small.
No,
if it brings you joy,
and you can combine them. So
yes,
social self-care. So I told myself that I felt like I was missing something. Something in my life outside of all the caregiving responsibilities, but I was really trying hard to take vacations and to do things, but something still felt like I was really missing something. And I decided it was going out at night. Normal people go out at night. And I don't think I had done that for months and months and months. So I decided that once a month I was going to go out at night. I was going to get a caregiver and go out at night. And so I would go to a cooking class, which is a combination of which two?
Intellectual and social.
I learned how to cook something new.
Yeah.
And I socialized with a friend or a group of people that I didn't know. So anyway, that's another sort of thing to think about is
that you can certainly. I love a twofer. We all love. We all love a buy one get one. You know, so I used to feel guilty. We're going back to the guilt thing, like for playing words with friends.
Yeah.
Like this is a waste of time.
Yeah.
No, I've reframed it. It is intellectual self-care, and it is also social self-care because I'm playing with my 80-year-old aunt, and some other relatives and friends that I from high school even. So we can reframe that stuff.
I like
it. If it brings you joy, keep doing it.
And these categories are listed somewhere that they can find them?
Yes. Underneath the resources on happyhealthycaregiver.com, you can find the different self-care categories. So if you feel like you want to kind of dive deeper into any of these, you can certainly go there.
Well, now we've given ourselves permission and we have started to think more broadly about it. Now let's prioritize it.
I like that.
Yes. I mean, sometimes people ask me for my best self-care tip, and it's really not, earth-shattering. It's basically scheduling and making time for yourself so that it can be put into motion, because we can talk about it all we want. One of the activities that I love to do, and I want to invite the listeners to do, is something called the 20 for 25. This is 20 things in this year that bring you joy, bring you energy, bring you peace of mind, all of that. Nothing is drudgery on here. This is all stuff that you want to look forward to doing. One of the things on my list is to do the self-care at sea cruise in October. So I'm going with some fellow care advocates. We'll link to that here. Hopefully, so we invite you all to go, because you can come for the respite, but leave with the community and the resources. But so some of them are big things like travel, but some of them are little things like I would love to learn how to play mahjong.
There you go.
That sounds like, I've heard a lot of people say that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. What's something I invited you all to do this, Sue and Nancy. So what did you have what's something on your 20 for 25?
The first one I put is to re-engage my spiritual journey, something I used to really invest a lot of time with and chose to not prioritize for a period of time. And now it's time to prioritize it again. And I'm very excited about it. I actually went back afterward and I added a heart to it.
That's good.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I put walk outside as one of my top ones, because I tend to feel compelled to be on the treadmill, to be in the house all the time. And so, every now and then take the chance and go outside instead.
Yeah. I'm curious on how that's going to make you feel. Because
not till April.
Okay. I find a lot of energy by being outdoors.
Yes,
like it is definitely one of my go-to strategies.
Yes. And getting sunlight.
I need to get back to it. That's the only way for I used to always walk outside, and now
there's a big world out there.
I know, get out there. I'll tell you another thing that goes along with this, and just thinking about the cruise as a topic. I intentionally schedule 2 vacations a year. I have for the last probably 5 years. Well, post-COVID, so almost 5 years, with my sister. And I thought, and these are travel vacations, and I thought, what will people think? I mean, the first time I thought, because I did have to get somebody to come care for my husband. And I thought, what will people think?
Yeah.
And the strangest thing is that all I have ever gotten is, oh my goodness, that's so wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear you did that. That's awesome. I've never gotten anybody even gave me a funny look. People truly, when they give you that advice that's so annoying, they really mean it. And so I only got positive feedback for making the effort to go on vacation. So the cruise sounds wonderful, and I may actually go.
I love that.
So on that note, I'm giving myself credit for scheduling vacations and actually going on them. I think we ought to go to tip 4, which is give yourself some credit.
Give yourself some credit. I think, we talk a lot about to-do lists as caregiver.
Yes.
Let's talk about a to-do list.
Oh, I like it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about the things that we are doing right.
Yes.
I think sometimes we can tend to just gravitate towards the negative of things, but
you're right.
We're doing a lot of stuff that is working right. And so there are things I guarantee that each of you listening are doing that is self-care right now in one of those 8 categories. If you are, sleeping, if you are making a meal, if you're brushing your teeth, if you're paying your bills, all of that is self-care. And, that's a starting point, and a ta-da that we should celebrate that. And then, I think, and then inviting people to think about, okay, what else is missing that would particularly energize me or give me peace of mind or joy, and putting that in there. But definitely give yourself credit.
I like it.
I do. I like that. And it's be proud of yourself that you are doing that, and celebrate teeny tiny little things. You're not mentioning huge things. Well, the cruise is a huge thing, but a lot of the other things we talk about, they don't have to be a big moment there. It's just you are doing something. And then the more that we become aware of these things, the more we start to doing the things that we've been talking about.
So true.
Elizabeth, this has been wonderful with your tips. Let's go ahead and summarize and share with us any final comments you've got.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I could be doing this, by the way, all afternoon.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to unpack on self-care, because we need examples from other family caregivers of what is working for them and what we could potentially try on that might also work for us, because we need to figure out how this is going to be sustainable, or we're all going to burn out. And so I invite people to stay connected through happyhealthycaregiver.com. You can learn about the cruise. You can check out the podcast, which only, spotlights real family caregivers.
You can get your 20 for 25 fact
20 for 25
fun sheet.
You can get your fun sheet. It's not a worksheet. It's a fun sheet.
Wait, let me get one of the other things. One of the things I use. Here, hang on a minute. All right.
You can check out the journal. This is, I want people to have an easy way to try on journaling. So the Just For You daily self-care journal. And then I also will do a weekly newsletter. So every week I send something happy, something healthy, something care related. And I have heard from people that even beyond caregiving, they like to stay subscribed because it just gives them new ideas.
I like it. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for joining us today to talk about the realities of self-care. We talked about 4 tips. The first tip was give yourself permission. The second tip, think broadly. The third tip, give self-care the right priority. And the fourth tip, and my favorite, is give yourself a pat on the back. Celebrate what you are doing that's self-care. Now, if you have self-care tips that you think other people could take advantage of, please go out to our Facebook page or our Instagram page and put those tips out there so other people can see them. If you like this podcast, please follow it or subscribe to it and rate it or review it. We really appreciate that. Everything we talked about here that is a resource that you can get to will be in the show notes. And Elizabeth, I can't tell you how much I enjoyed just spending time today talking about self-care. It makes me feel so good when you think about the things you can do for yourself, and hopefully it energizes people, like you said.
Yeah, hopefully. Thank you for having me here.
You're very welcome.
We're all on this journey together.